And now for a Next News special report.
We've got a lot to unpack in this report, so stay with me, because in a world shifting rapidly beneath our feet, we stand at the brink of an unprecedented crisis. From Iran's fierce defiance against Israel to the hellish war cries echoing from the rubble of Gaza, tensions simmer perilously. As President Biden takes to the skies in a daring move and superpowers like Russia and China rearrange the global chessboard, we glimpse a world on the precipice of devastation. Pope Francis' solemn plea reverberates amidst the chaos, but is humanity listening? As we delve deeper into this intricate web of geopolitics, a looming question emerges. Can the world be pulled back from the edge of oblivion? Our final thought ponders this very question and the salvation that may be sought from a divine power. In a world where international dynamics change at the drop of a hat, today we find ourselves at the nexus of a crisis that's been a long time coming. Let's unravel this complex web piece by piece. From the foothills of Alborz Mountains to the hustle of Tehran's bustling streets, a singular narrative dominates Iran's staunch defiance against Israel. Today, that defiance took a sharper edge. Hints of possible preemptive actions against Israel aren't just diplomatic posturing. Intelligence suggests mobilization of Iranian-backed militias in the region, hinting at a potential move. Take a look.
A Fox News alert, Israeli forces are on the Gaza border preparing for a major ground operation into Gaza, and Iran is making more threats, warning Israel to call it off or face retaliation that it says no one in the world will be able to stop.
Quote, in the coming hours, we can expect a preemptive action by the resistance front. If the crimes in Gaza do not stop immediately, new fronts will be opened. With that,
some analysts theorize Iran's bolder stance is more than just solidarity with the Palestinians. It's a power play, positioning Iran as the protector of Muslim interests in the region. Let's take a look at how Al Jazeera English is covering this.
Well, we just heard from the Iranian foreign minister in Doha during his meeting with the Emir of Qatar, and he made it very clear and had one of the strongest warnings from Iran that we've heard over the past 8 days. He said that if the situation continues and the Israeli bombardment and aggression, as he called it, continues on the Palestinian, the situation will expand. It will not be confined to just Gaza. This is something very significant that we have heard from the high-ranking Iranian official. The situation, if it's not remedied, if it doesn't de-escalate, then there is no telling how large the conflict will get. And Iran, along with other regional players, can no longer be an observer, directly hinting that Iran is willing to enter into this conflict directly if Israel doesn't step back.
The powder keg that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict isn't new, yet the recent ferocity with which Israel announced its war against Hamas shocked many. The spark, a bold incursion by Hamas fighters, Hamas terrorists, into Israeli territory. Israel's retaliation was swift. Aerial assaults backed by artillery fire turned parts of Gaza into infernos of dust and smoke. Over 1,400 casualties and counting, a significant portion being innocent civilians. For many Israelis, it's about defending their homeland. For Palestinians in Gaza, it feels like an existential siege. And while Iran applauds Hamas' tenacity, it vehemently denies any direct role in the recent escalation. Yet intelligence chatter suggests Iranian-made weapons and even U.S. weapons left over from Biden's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan might be playing a role. Entrapped between rubble and hope, the civilians of Gaza face a grim reality. With infrastructure devastated, essential supplies like clean water, food, and medicine dwindling rapidly, there's a palpable sense of despair. UN aid workers on the ground recount harrowing tales of families torn apart, children traumatized, and entire population pushed to the brink because of the brutal actions of Hamas. The collective cry, an end to hostilities. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres didn't mince words. In a published statement, he declared, "We are on the verge of the abyss in the Middle East." It underscores the direness of the situation. And at the United Nations, the Secretary General addressed the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, emphasizing the importance of adhering to international humanitarian and human rights laws. He stressed that civilians must be protected and should not be used as shields, as Hamas is doing. He also called for the immediate release of all hostages in Gaza and urged all parties and those with influence over them to do everything possible to achieve these measures. Let's take a look at the video from his speech.
Even wars have rules. International humanitarian law and human rights law must be respected and upheld. Civilians must be protected and also never used as shields. And all hostages in Gaza must be released immediately. It is imperative that all parties and those who have influence over them to do everything possible to achieve these steps.
Pope Francis recently advocated for humanitarian corridors in the Gaza Strip. It sounds noble, right? But there's another side to this. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen quickly fired back, demanding a clear condemnation of Hamas terrorist attacks. After all, Israel's mourning 1,300 lost lives. And Cohen rightly said, quote, "It's unacceptable to worry mainly for Gazan civilians while Israel buries 1,300 murdered. It's a two-sided conflict and both sides deserve recognition. Simplifying or skewing the story serves no one." As for Air Force One, it charts its course towards Israel. The world watches. It's a daring move, one that puts President Joe Biden right in the eye of the storm. This isn't just about reassuring an ally. It's a signal to the world. The U.S., despite its attempts to pivot away from Middle East quagmires, remains deeply committed to regional peace. And we're also learning now that on Wednesday, the Middle East, they're calling for an international day of rage, just as Joe Biden is set to land in Israel. Here's more from Secretary of State Blinken.
Today, President Biden will visit Israel. He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world. And he's coming here to do the following. First, the President will reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel and our ironclad commitment to its security. President Biden will again make clear, as he's done unequivocally since Hamas's slaughter of more than 1,400 people, including at least 30 Americans, that Israel has the right and indeed the duty to defend its people from Hamas and other terrorists and to prevent future attacks. The President will hear from Israel what it needs to defend its people as we continue to work with Congress to meet those needs. Second, President Biden will underscore our crystal clear message to any actor, state or non-state, trying to take advantage of this crisis to attack Israel. Don't. To that end, he's deployed 2 aircraft carrier groups and other military assets to the region. Third, the President will continue to coordinate closely with our Israeli partners to secure the release of hostages taken by Hamas, including men, women, small children, Holocaust survivors, and American citizens.
From Israel, Biden's journey continues to Amman, Jordan. Meetings with regional leaders are on the cards, and the anticipation is palpable. The objective, a peaceful resolution, but the path to it remains fogged with challenges. And I should also point out that as we were going to press here, we're learning from ABC News that President Mahmoud Abbas has now canceled his planned meeting with President Biden. So that is definitely not a good sign for U.S. relations with Abbas in the region. Now, while the U.S. makes its stance clear, Russia and China aren't mere spectators. Both nations have begun to throw their weight behind the Palestinians. President Vladimir Putin's condemnation of Israel's actions is expected, but it's the behind-the-scenes maneuvers that are of interest, as Putin and Xi are set to meet on the sidelines of the BRI Forum on Wednesday. Vladimir Putin already touching down in China. Let's take a look.
That's Vladimir Putin. He's traveling not to Israel, though, but to China. And this is significant. Putin has barely stepped out of Russia since he invaded Ukraine. So this is a rare international visit for him, and it's for a special occasion. This week, China is holding the BRI Forum, the Belt and Road Initiative Forum. It was supposed to be a grand affair, but the war in West Asia seems to have dimmed its sheen. As the leaders meet, the focus will be on Israel and Hamas, and the big question will be this: where do Russia and China stand on the war? Let's start with Moscow. They should not be complaining. The war in West Asia means distraction. The world has something else to talk about. The headlines no longer care about Ukraine, and that's a plus for Vladimir Putin. Also, the West is now busy elsewhere. They're rallying behind Israel. They're sending arms and pledging support. Of course, Russia hopes that this would mean less support for Ukraine, but the US says that won't happen. America says it can support both Israel and Ukraine. It's a good promise to make, but it will be harder to keep, because if this war drags on, it will test America's capacity as an ally. And Moscow is counting on that. Plus, it is slamming Washington's role in West Asia.
It is obvious that this US policy in the Middle East is a failure. Why do I think that? Because like I said, now at the session, the United States has practically moved away from the previous international instruments for resolving this issue, which included several countries. One of them was Russia.
So distraction from Ukraine and a blow to the West. But that's not all that Russia cares about. It is also trying to play the role of mediator. Putin was asked about this. Listen to what he said.
We have very stable business relations with Israel. We have had friendly relations with Palestine for decades. Our friends know about this. And Russia, in my opinion, could also make its contribution to the peace process.
You heard that. Today, Russia spoke to 5 major stakeholders in the conflict. This includes Iran and other Arab nations. So Moscow is looking to play peacemaker, but it's not the only one. Its close friend China is eyeing the same role. When the Hamas attack first happened, Beijing condemned it, but it did not mention Hamas. China then talked about the two-state solution. It talked about peace in West Asia and how it can only be achieved with the creation of a Palestinian state.
The root cause of the Palestinian issue lies in the fact that Palestine's long-cherished wish to establish an independent state has not been realized. The way out lies in the founding of an independent Palestinian state, that is, implementing the two-state solution and realizing the peaceful coexistence of Palestine and Israel.
Intelligence suggests possible arms deals and military training. China, traditionally more reserved, has dropped subtle hints about its position. In numerous remarks about the violence, the Chinese Foreign Ministry consistently avoids mentioning Hamas or terrorism. In fact, China denies even recognizing an assault on Israel. These global superpowers' nuanced moves hint at a shifting landscape in international politics. Their involvement elevates this from a regional skirmish to a global chessboard. Across the azure waters of the Mediterranean, a formidable presence lurks. The U.S. Marines, specifically the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, positioned strategically off Israel's coast, represents a clear message to potential adversaries. Tread carefully. Take a look.
The 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit is moving to the region. The 26th MU is an adaptable military force composed of infantry, aviation, and logistics components, all operating under one command. Positioned at sea, the 26th MU is equipped to execute amphibious missions, respond to crises, and engage in limited contingency operations across a spectrum of military scenarios.
Now, their presence isn't just symbolic. The Marines, backed by an impressive naval flotilla, stand ready for any eventuality. As they run drills and maintain a watchful eye, their mere presence is a powerful deterrent. Here's more.
Well, a significant number of U.S. troops are preparing to potentially, if they are needed, deploy to Israel within 24 hours' notice. A U.S. defense official telling our producer here, Liz Frieden, that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin initiated these be-ready-to-deploy orders over the weekend if they are needed for further defense of Israel. Now, the Wall Street Journal first reported this story that the military had selected about 2,000 troops to prepare for a potential deployment to support Israel. That's prepare. That does not mean that they are going. The Journal reports the Pentagon would task them with missions like advising and medical support, no intention of a combat role. They'd come from across the services and around the world. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh says the Defense Department already has a small number of personnel in Israel to augment embassy staff. That would be to advise and consult on hostage recovery. The U.S. is about doubling the Navy presence in the region, dispatching the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group to the Eastern Mediterranean to join the Ford Carrier Group that's already there. On top of the missiles and warplanes, the Navy's positioning in the region, the Air Force has announced it's sending squadrons of F-15, F-16, and A-10 fighter aircraft, giving the U.S. more than 100 attack planes in the region.
The unit comprises of 2,000 Marines and sailors and will team up with more U.S. troops and vessels positioned near Israel's coast to discourage Hezbollah, Iran, and others from entering the Israel-Hamas conflict. Additionally, the Pentagon is readying approximately 2,000 soldiers for potential assignment to assist Israel, U.S. defense authorities stated. These troops will handle tasks such as guidance and medical aid, according to the authorities, and hail from various U.S. military branches. They're not meant for frontline combat, authorities emphasize. No infantry units have received deployment readiness directives. And back in our homeland, threats of Hamas already inside our nation have set off alarm bells. Watch.
Let me ask you about that, because police in Brussels killed a suspected terrorist this morning after he allegedly shot and killed 2 people Monday night. The suspect said to have been inspired by the Islamic State. In the U.S., Customs and Border Protection say 2 Iranians who reportedly pose a significant security threat were captured trying to cross the border in the last 2 weeks, Congressman. So the border, I know, is you and your colleagues' priority here, and it's wide open. And we've got people coming from all over the world, Middle Eastern countries, Chinese nationals who are military-aged men. What can you do about it?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, these people are already over here. The idea that people are coming, they're already over here. We see lots of times who we've captured the night before. We need to, what we do about it is get back to where we secure the border. The wall works, judges work, the stay in Mexico policy works. And we need to be putting all that back together again, but we're just having people run in here right now like a movie, and they're just breaking the law, and they're coming here. And the scary thing is, Maria, as you know, they're not leaving, they're staying. And I'm concerned that what we see happening in Israel could be the same thing happening here if we don't get a hold of our border and be a land of laws and get these bad people and get them out of here.
Yeah, you talk about.
As the dominoes of international conflict wobble precariously, the world must decide, will they fall and plunge us into chaos, or can diplomacy and compassion steady the board? Only time will tell. The dance of geopolitics sees nations making strategic moves, each step echoing signs of heightened escalation. From the U.S. Marines' potent presence in the Mediterranean to the shadowy dealings of superpowers, every move stirs the waters of conflict. But as the world seems poised for cataclysm, there emerges a clarion call for peace, diplomacy, and an end to the bloodshed. At such moments, it is not just the leaders who must act, but every soul in unison praying for deliverance. For in these desperate times, only the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, can offer salvation. The world stands at a crossroads, one path leading to destruction, the other to redemption. Let our prayers join in a collective cry imploring the heavens for guidance and intervention. For when humanity falters, divine providence must light the way. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.